first and getting that out of the way, then skipping to number 5 and doing the BEA compliance one, and then doing 7 and 8. So we'd have 4 separate items that, frankly, I don't think anybody's going to have any debate on or whatever. And if they do, that's fine, but it's the low-hanging fruit.
I'm with you.
Okay.
We're in the same line.
Okay. Is everybody back?
Yeah, I will. Yes. Yeah. Isabel.
She'll be right back.
Is that what she said?
Well, no, she ran past me in that direction.
She will be right back. We have a quorum, so we'll go ahead
Okay.
and start out
Okay.
with these easy buddies.
So
Here she comes.
the first thing is motions or business items 1, 2, and 3 on your sheet. These pertain to meeting dates. A few things going on. First of all, after having tried out the Thursday-Friday structure, there were some implications for board members and there was some implications for staff. Executive committee has recommended moving back to the Wednesday-Thursday structure. The effect of the second motion, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Second and third motion is to set the dates on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I'd be happy to go into all those implications, but they're rather long and tedious and probably not worth the airtime that it would require. But I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you have. The first motion on this, it pertains specifically to the retreat, okay? The executive committee received pretty extensive feedback that they'd like to do a retreat that is in a retreat location that is a less scheduled and more kind of, as Bob said, kind of a opportunity to reflect, not go visit schools, not go, And so Denise, to her credit, did some searching around for a retreat location that would accommodate our state rate. We can't pay for luxury, right? We pay for what the state will allow. And we did find a place that would accommodate us at the state rate so long as we came during the middle of the week, which is part of the Wednesday-Thursday thing. It would mean effectively switching where we were originally going to be in Everett for our next retreat and replacing that with, what's it called? Skamania Lodge, which is like cut their rate by like half just to, I think, fill the rooms in the middle of the week. You would be taking a vote to do that. Now, there was one issue raised with me from OSPI staff in the sense that it might create a problem when we are giving up a free space in Everett for one we are paying for in Skamania. I am going to try to prevail on them that we are merely switching years. So instead of going to Everett this year, we're going to Everett next year. Just for the board's information, should this ever come up, when we come to an ESD or we have board meetings at various venues, we pay anywhere from $200 to $1,000 a day for the facility that we use. Skamania is charging us $300 a day, which is certainly on the low end and lower than a lot of the ESDs that we use. So it wouldn't be a cost factor in terms of the space. It was more in terms of, the Everett facility was going to be free for that particular meeting. So, but I think the board has a right to want to try something different, and if they want to switch 1 year out for Everett and do Skamania, I don't see why the board would be, provided it falls within state guidelines. I don't see the problem there. So I'm comfortable recommending that. If I have any problems, I'll let you know. Did I miss anything? That is, how about that, huh? Did you even know I can keep all that in my head?
You've been trained, Ben.
All righty, very good. See, I saved you all that hassle. Things. Well, I was kind of hoping to not have to have her do it. That's what I'm saying. So, it's okay. So, with the chair's indulgence, maybe we can take 1, 2, and 3 now.
Okay. So you've heard it there, and the chair is ready to entertain a motion. Are you guys having too much fun over there? I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I move to approve the date and location change from September 14th through 16th, 2016 in Everett to September 13th through 15th, 2016 in Stevenson, as shown in Exhibit A.
I second.
Right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the date change for the September 14th, or for the September meeting of 2016. I can't talk. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
I move to approve the date changes for 2017-2018 board meeting dates and locations as shown in Exhibit B.
I second the motion.
Let's make sure we get Exhibit B up. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the date change for the 2017-18 board meeting dates and locations. Is there any further discussion?
And they're on the screen behind you.
And they're on the screen behind you, Exhibit B. Hearing none? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Who wants to do number 3?
I move to approve the 2019-2020 board meeting dates and locations as shown in Exhibit C.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2019-2020 board meeting dates and locations. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Parker, please pull up Exhibit E. Okay. Earlier, Jack and Parker, by the way, they've done a good job, guys, with that report and changing the report. We got a lot of good feedback that it's easier for districts to do, and plus we're getting better information out of it. It's a lot of work, so thank you for that. Exhibit E is accepting the report of the basic education compliance that you've heard today. The exhibit is on your screen and is a statutorily required notation by you that you have gone through the process of accepting compliance information from school districts, and you've completed the process, and there are no districts that are out of compliance with basic education requirements.
Just point of clarification.
Put your button up. Cindy.
Point of clarification, Ben is using the word accept as opposed to adopt.
I didn't mean that.
Okay,
No.
so that's why I
Sure.
wondered that.
Yeah, use what's on the motion there.
May I make a motion, Mr. Chair?
You may.
Thank you. I move to adopt the 2015 School District Basic Education Compliance Report as shown in Exhibit E.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the 2015 School District BEA Compliance Report. Is there discussion? Oh, I have something to say. I do want to echo what Ben said, that I thought that was some very good work. It was visually very helpful the way Parker does that, so I always look forward, and I will continue to look forward to Parker's pies, because they are very good. So, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, so item number 7, if we could skip number 6 for a second, go to 7. There is no exhibit for this. Remember, this is a somewhat unique situation in that you don't approve temporary waivers. You merely, what is the, we grant them, but we cannot reject temporary waivers. And so you have 3 before you.
And I'm prepared to entertain a motion.
I move to approve the temporary waiver
Of graduation requirements for the following school districts for the number of years and reasons requested in their applications to the board: Naches Valley, Washougal, and Entiat.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the temporary graduation requirements for Naches Valley School District, Washougal School District, and Entiat School District. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Exhibit G, please, Parker. So this is the language that member mayor passed out. And I think what I would ask is that we certainly take this motion with a little latitude for staff to be able to build it into this board norms document and structure it, so it wouldn't be this freestanding document, but I would take the substance of it and include in next meeting's packet the full board norms. I'm not sure that, it's been a while since we put the full board norms in the packet. We'll have you take a look at the whole thing, put it in the next packet.
Ready for a motion?
I move to approve adding the strategic plan issues exploration documents as shown on Exhibit G to the board norms.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the, am I calling this right? Approval of strategic plan issues exploration process as shown in Exhibit G behind us. Discussion, board members. Mona.
Does this contemplate if there was some unexpected issue to arrive in the state, that it could not be brought up at a board meeting? Is there a norm that addresses that?
Yeah, so excellent question, Mona. The answer is no. This is the idea is to have a process for new large initiatives and a way to explore them, develop them, and move on. If something happens during the year, or even a smaller item, then certainly nothing in my mind. This does not preclude the board from doing anything.
Or the chair's prerogative.
Or the chair's prerogative. But it's more of a way of an internal agreement on a process that will add some little bit of structure, particularly as we have membership changes. So excellent point, and I mean we can always do anything procedurally, almost. But that's the intention is not to put a straitjacket in terms of responding to situations that may arise.
Right. Like the charter school law is real unconstitutional, something intervening comes up and maybe it's not in the strategic plan, the chair still has the prerogative to say, hey, we need a discussion about X, whatever X is.
This is more an enabling process than a kind of walls.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I want to say thank you, Peter, for just putting some simple structure together that will be helpful guidance.
Amen. Cindy.
I remember a lengthy discussion about how concerns or issues that board members have could be brought to the entire board. And my memory is that what we settled on was it needed to go to the chair and or the executive committee, and that's how it would come back around. I would encourage the board when it looks at the board protocols and norms when you bring them back to think about expanding this process into any issue that a board member might want to bring forward, not just a strategic plan issue. This is a great start, but it is not how I remember us settling on how non-strategic plan issues would come to the board.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, so at this point, we have left 4 and 6. Parker, please pull up Exhibit F.
So I would also entertain a motion on this so we can move to discussion.
So this was in,
Oh, go ahead if you want to walk us through.
does everybody know what's up with this and you want me to talk?
You should talk and make a motion after that.
It's in your online packet, and I believe a copy was, did we print? Yeah, okay, there's a copy on your.
In the back of the right-hand side of your additional materials folder.
What I would encourage here, this is a gentle encouragement, is I often really do value your grammatical catches. I actually do. I actually mean that. If you could mark them and give them to us, that will allow us to focus your debate on any substance. If you have the actual letter and you think there's something weird, I've already got 2 of them. If you could mark that and give that to Jack. That would allow for airspace to be dedicated to the McCleary issues themselves, if that's how the chair wishes to proceed.
Are we doing? Do people just want to read through it? We take a minute here to do that. Cindy?
While I understand that the opening sentence in paragraph 4 on its face makes some good sense, I'm not sure school districts can actually do that.
Which one are we talking? Paragraph 4?
Yes, where
Can you scroll down further?
that's the separation of local levy funding from basic education obligations. My experience has been that almost everything that's done in the school district has some local levy dollars that have to support it, and the dollars don't come in like orange versus green, and so they're very hard to follow. You've got the budget, and it's going to cost this much, and here's the money. And remembering that the state money comes as an allocation, I'm just concerned that that particular requirement, if it gets focused on, is going to become a nightmare in school districts, which will in fact cost more money than it will have efficacy. So I just point that part out.
Levy money goes into the general fund. It is impossible to segregate.
I just remember when we would put out levies and people would say, what do you buy with that? And we had to say a little bit of everything. We could never say, so that's my concern about causing a bureaucratic nightmare in a finance director's office when what we're really saying is you need to fully fund basic education.
Go ahead, Connie.
But that's the problem, is until you can separate out what truly is a basic education function from that which is appropriate for, which is enrichment, supplemental through the levy, we're going to perpetuate the problem we're currently in. So somehow that's got to be done.
And I understand that. It's just that the language here implies to me that the finance office, that we're asking for almost like a regulation that says that a school finance office has to say that we put $25 of levy money in this category. They are not going to be able to do that in reality. And until the time where we have full funding of basic education, levy dollars are always going to be in there someplace. So what I don't want to have happen is for this to lead away from what the real focus is, which is get the money. It's got to be sustainable and viable, and start separating out basic education to be funded by the state from what levy dollars should do, by making it look like we're asking for a new substantial regulation that's going to be really problematic.
Hang on, Peter. You have some
Yeah,
thoughts?
so I think it's unintended, but I have some language that'll, I think, fix that issue. Because it is so if we said, we'll also need a strategy to address the use of local levy funding for basic education obligations that should be are actually, not is, the states. So we're not collecting, yeah.
Are you good with that? Okay. Did you get that? Okay, so I wrote down some notes, and Jack will come over here in a second.
Any other comments? Okay, are we good on that change in language? Okay. So I'm ready to entertain a motion on this, unless Ben or Jack. Yeah, so we do have it up on the
So,
screen.
Parker, you're gonna,
Can you read it up there, or, okay, yeah. So.
Parker, Jack's gonna give you some language for a second.
That's not where I was supposed to go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the wrong place. Undo all that. It's the first sentence of the next paragraph. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. How's that, Cindy?
Legislature will also need to address the strategy to address. We'll also need it, we got to address a couple of times in there, so to point it out. We'll need a strategy. We'll need to adopt. Go there. Create a strategy. That's good. To address the use of local levies on basic education.
Okay. Others?
Yes, any other edits? Connie, push your button.
It doesn't quite work yet. We want to separate what's appropriate for local levies from basic education operations, right? Is that the idea here?
I think that the spirit of Peter's language suggestions, it really puts the onus more on the state than it does the districts. So the legislature needs to have a strategy for eliminating the use of local levies, and it kind of does not necessarily imply some new accounting burden per se, but more of a funding burden.
What was that? I'm sorry. This is where we are, right? I mean, there's no, certainly that is that. My understanding is correct.
Correct?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Does it make sense then?
It does for.
If there's any glaring wordsmith issues, well, don't worry, we won't send it out.
There you go.
But we certainly get the spirit of what Peter's trying to do there.
Okay.
Would it be more deliberative to make one other change in that opening statement?
Mona, you always need to have that on.
I'm going to propose that we start that, you moved the screen. If you go back to the paragraph we were working on.
There we go.
Yeah, we also request the legislature to create a strategy. And the rest of it is fine.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
So
we getting it right?
Get rid of also, we'll also need.
You get rid of also
We
again?
also request the legislature to create a strategy.
Yeah.
Get rid of all of this.
Adopt the strategy, adopt the strategy, that's all. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of, I need to call it the right thing, to approve, all those who favor the letter to Governor Inslee on budget priorities for the supplemental budget as shown in Exhibit G, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, we didn't move it? Oh, well, let's go back. Let's have a motion. I get lost.
I move to approve the letter to Governor Inslee on budget priorities for the supplemental budget as shown in Exhibit F. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the approval of the letter to Governor Inslee as noted in Exhibit G behind me.
It's F.
F, God, I don't know why. Yeah, okay. All right. In Exhibit F, excuse me. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Parker, please pull up Exhibit D. Mr. Chair, I'm going to take a stab at this.
Go.
I think, can I get like a wave of hands or something if I'm getting one of these wrong? But I think that McCleary implementation, professional learning, I think those are the only two for which we have no issues at all. Is that correct? Does anybody have any issues on those two? So on your sheet, page 82, the one that, so the problem, the Parker is going to have to work from a Word document because to the extent that we are amending things. But on page 82 of your packet, it's the McCleary implementation, which is the top left, and professional learning, which is immediately to its right. I had no notes on those as to issues people had. Is that true?
Cindy?
There's a grammatical mistake.
Okay, which one?
Fourth to the last line, second to the last word, you should are.
Okay. Second to the last line, did you say?
Third, okay. It should say, basic education programs and compensation of school district staff for basic education duties are.
Okay. Okay, got that. Anything else for professional learning or? Okay.
All right.
We need to change it.
We just need a slight moment, we're not on the one that we just did.
Okay.
So,
Cindy, was your comment on that one, or was it on? Yeah, it was on the clearing.
It was grammatically correct.
It was grammatically correct with is permissible.
No, it's fully funded.
No, that's what she said.
So, I mean, I'm looking at it to ensure that basic education programs and compensation of school district staff for basic education are fully funded. That's
Okay.
more than one to finish.
Okay. All right.
Okay, got it.
So we're McCleary's good. Professional learning. Anything on that?
Oh, Connie?
Are we going to be approving these section by section?
Yeah, but these two I'm trying to knock out the ones for which there are no
So do you
legitimate.
want a motion on these two?
Correct.
It was-
But before, is everybody good? Okay.
You can
So
be the chair.
Parker, McCleary is exhibit what? What are we going to call that?
It can remain as Exhibit D, and the next one we'll move on to will be Exhibit H.
Okay, so McCleary implementation, we're going to call exhibit D. And professional learning, we're going to call exhibit H. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you will see them labeled on the screen behind you or in front of you, as the case may be. And now,
So now I am prepared to entertain a motion on these two.
I move the approval of legislative priorities found in Exhibit D, McCleary implementation, and Exhibit H, professional learning for educators.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt legislative priorities on the McCleary implementation. That's, we call it Exhibit D, and the one on professional learning for educators, which is Exhibit H. Any additional conversation? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
okay, may I suggest we take high school and beyond plan next? And Parker will be labeling that exhibit what?
I.
So exhibit I is high school and beyond plan. And I have a note that Bob made a comment here. And
Yeah, I was going to propose that in those 4 bullets, I think you can see up here in red, on the second bullet, just to clarify that careers are the primary objective, and show that identification of educational goals is in support of the anticipated career goal. And the other one in bullet number 3, as I read it, the 4-year plan, I want to make sure you understood that was the high school course plan in planning for career education. So just more of a clarification and an order.
I wanted to propose a wording amendment as well, where in the blue writing at the top, so it says high school and beyond plan. Then the first word in the first sentence is strengthen the high school and beyond plan. I would add strengthen and fund.
Yeah, there we go. This will be our new, yeah, I mean, that's absolutely. Janice.
I was on that track too, except it's in the body where it says expand or define, again, define and fund.
Very good. Peter.
We heard discussion about, from Tim Propus, about goals that may not be career, may not be college. And I wonder if we want to put anticipated career and life goals. I mean, what we want is people to have, the students to be looking forward. And it's, there's a wide range of alternatives.
Okay. Others?
Right.
I would put that also in that first bullet then. I mean, you've got the second one. There you go.
Unless the high school and beyond plan doesn't deal with that, but I believe that it does deal with that.
That's fine.
Okay, Mona?
The last bullet, identification of assessments needed to earn a diploma and achieve post-secondary goals. Is that premature?
Not from where I sit. Cindy?
Well, to that end, could we add a diploma, something about the certification process? That students can come out of high school with a diploma, appropriate certifications or something like that? I mean,
I see what you're saying.
Haven't we said, if
Yeah.
you're going to get an industry certification while you're in high school, it's not just your diploma that you should be identifying, it should be what do you have to do that too.
Okay.
Could I say more?
Sure.
Identification of assessments. What, you say you don't think it's premature, what are they? What are the assessments required to earn a diploma?
Go ahead, nobody say on.
To me, it would, maybe it's your AP tests that you're going to take, or evaluations of your skills or interests that will lead you into a particular area. That's the way I read it. So maybe that just will show how unclear that is.
Not every student is going to take AP tests or SATs or ACTs. Some students will, some will not. Would requirements, identification of requirements, be less ambiguous statement? I don't know that we know what assessments will be required.
I think that's sort of the point, is that the assessments that will be required for that student will vary according to their goals. And so for some it may be the SAT or ACT. For others it may be a certification assessment test. So I think it'll vary, and that's the point here, is that they need to identify what those will be so they can plan ahead for them.
I think the career guidance Washington structure has part of it. Kind of
Would requirements be better? Would that be more accurate? Identification of requirements needed to earn a diploma, whatever they're going to be?
Okay, hang on. Jeff, did you?
I was just going to say, since it's the individual who's doing that, and the I'm sorry, I was just saying, since the individual is responsible for the answer to zero, I don't know the answer to this question about whether requirements should be added. I mean, I don't want to make it longer, but whether requirements in Sims assessments or not, I'm not sure. Assessments certainly is
Could be included under
It's going to be a piece of
It
that.
could be, I don't know whether that would be, people know, I mean, I don't know. My point simply was, that the answer could be zero, whatever you add there, so it doesn't bind anybody having assessment there, because they can look at that and say, I don't need to do anything, depending on what happens going forward.
But it doesn't preclude that they would have to take an assessment.
Just remember to have your mic on. You're talking, Bob, did you want? Okay.
I'm not comfortable, but,
I guess I,
better minds,
you know, I have a different mind. I definitely have an old man's mind. I'm in a class. I get through the class. I'm going to be given a grade for it. Oh, by the way, I have to take a test in the class. That to me falls under this category of assessments. It's an umbrella statement, but you know.
Anyway.
well, that's different from needing to earn a diploma.
Well, if I don't pass a class, and you know, I'm still in that mode, I'm still going to eventually get a high school diploma. But I don't want to get into uber debate on this. Go ahead.
These are just legislative priorities, so if that were to change in this legislative session and that you didn't have to pass a particular assessment to graduate, then I would assume staff would logically think that that part was going away. But if there are assessments required, standardized assessments required to graduate, then I think you have to have that in case plan, because I gotta tell you, you can say it and you can say it again and you can say it 50 times and you can say it 100 times and they still don't understand, and even the adults in the system don't understand. It should be in their high school and beyond plan for no other reason, so their teacher knows what assessments they need to graduate. Because it changes so much we don't.
Okay. Further discussion? I can't remember, did we have a motion on this? I don't think. No, we haven't. Okay, so now I'm ready to entertain a motion from somebody.
I move the approval of Exhibit 1, high school beyond.
Oops.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
Exhibit
I move the approval of Exhibit I, High School and Beyond Plan, as part of the 2016 session legislative priorities.
Good. It's been moved and seconded to approve the legislative position high school and beyond plan. Okay, so any further discussion?
Another assumption. So having added the word funding in multiple places, can it be assumed that if the high school and beyond plan, there's going to be set requirements legislated in this session and they're not funded, that we would oppose them?
That's what our priorities are.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
So let's go to
The big fish.
expanded learning.
Exhibit J.
Exhibit J, like Parker.
We're doing good.
Exhibit J. I actually got, is staff permitted a comment on this one as I was reading it?
You need a microphone, sir.
Yeah, what would I call this, point of staff information? One of the ideas I've been toying with is not actually LAP, but general apportionment. And I thought, reading this might be, like various funding sources for summer school. So, since people are paying like attention to every word here, I'm just thinking, if I ended up devising something with general apportionment, would that be like outside the bounds of this priority? So either we could, it says options for funding include like 2 examples, but those weren't the only things I was thinking about. So, you know what I mean? So are you guys comfortable, or what do you want to do here?
Janice?
It is the lab funding that drew my attention, and the question I asked, I thought the goal of lab was to focus on low-income students.
Correct. It
And
is.
so it might be that that's what we need to say to modify a funding allocation targeted in that way.
Yeah, there's, point being that there's different ways in our current system where students currently access funding for summer learning. Lab is one, but there are others, less hidden, less well-known ways. And I actually don't have a fully formed thought at this point. I'm just saying, in the exploration of it, general apportionment is another option to pursue.
We have a Jack. All right, Cindy, go ahead.
Well, and I would suggest that we just take the whole options sentence out.
Or we could say options may include to them.
Well, I would even, one of the reasons I would suggest we take it out is, I would really like to see them come up with a sustained funding model as opposed to a grant program or a new way to use LAP, which actually dilutes LAP's emphasis. And I think that they could take that sentence and say, oh, we did exactly what you asked, and in fact they would do things that we wouldn't meet our definition of expanded.
Sure.
So I think if we just end with opportunities for disadvantaged students, you know how to play that out with examples.
I want to endorse Cindy's suggestion that we leave that out.
Well, I want to cry because unfortunately I didn't allow the discussions to expire completely with all this. So now this requires an amendment in order to do this because we're in a motion environment. Oh, we didn't? Oh, we didn't. Okay, my bad. Good, I don't have to cry. Keep going.
I agree.
So I think I agree too, unless what this does is give districts more flexibility in how they use their lab. Would this currently be a restricted use, that they can't use lab flexibly right now to accomplish this goal? If it was expanding the flexibility of lab dollars, then I like leaving that in there. I know in 2013, the way lab could be used got restricted in ways that were pretty impactful. So if what this does, the current language does, is increase the flexibility of the way districts can spend lab, then that's not a bad focus. So, but I don't know for sure that that's what it does.
I would advocate that by taking it out, we're not saying it couldn't be more flexible. That's certainly something that they could do that would fit the definition of expansion. But again, I'm really concerned that their theory of expansion will be not to add funds to this critical area. And I don't want to give them an out with that.
Okay, Janice.
So we need to include that word fund, because expansion without funding has the same problem.
Expand and fund.
Yeah.
Are we talking at the top, or where are we talking in here? Expanded and funded learning or expand and fund learning opportunity?
And fund.
So the whatever it is, 25 point or whatever you got there.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Well, expanded is about expanded learning opportunities.
Yeah, keep going.
Which is fun to expand it.
There you go. Or you can establish a fund.
And fund high quality expanded learning opportunities. Okay. Bob.
You know, when you take that out and you read it cold, you get the feeling that it's Bunker Frank again talking about summer schools. And that's not really the intent. The examples actually add to your expanded thinking.
No, go ahead, Cindy.
Then are there other examples?
Yeah, so where the this comes from is thinking about, the board had this priority about expanded learning in the general sense, right? Asking the question, how do we fund expanded right now? How do we fund expanded learning, and how could that be enhanced? In other words, is funding a barrier to kids currently participating in expanded learning opportunities? And I believe that it is. It's one barrier. It's not the only barrier, by the way, but it's one barrier. And so I have been giving some thought to what are the various ways that the system could be modified to eliminate those barriers. So, for example, in the example of summer school, if you have a kid who wants to engage in summer school right now, that's a big hurdle right away, right? You're not going to get a lot of kids that are, clamoring to show up for summer school. But to the extent that they do want to participate in summer school, could there be something in law that eliminates the financial barrier in cases where kids actually, or kids' parents want access to a summer program? The same holds true for an after-school or extended learning program as well, although the statutory environment for that's a little different in terms of how it's funded. It was just, I have a couple ideas I've been toying with in terms of, none of them are increased regulation of existing, but that's really not the road I'm going down. But, all right, okay, so let's do this. So, for example, you all attended the Skills Center over there, spoken at Entiat, right? What did you hear about? You heard about kids engaged in summer learning, right? Why are they engaged in summer learning? Do you know the answer? Right, but why all of a sudden the plethora of Skills Center students taking summer courses in the state? But why is that? Why?
I'm just guessing totally, but I bet they're doing it because they also want to meet Core 24 in an academic environment.
Well,
It's closed down. The only reason I'm saying that is because my son just took 2 online courses this summer, so he could do his tech classes and his college work.
That's part of it.
There's funding available, right?
Bingo. So when you're a Skills Center student, you have a super FTE allocation in order to go to a school district and a Skills Center. Most students don't use up their FTE-ness, if you will. I'll call it FTE-ness. They don't use up their budget. So at the end of the school year, there's still FTE that can be utilized without that student having to pay to take summer courses. So all of a sudden now you see this proliferation of what we saw, students telling us they were planning to take summer classes. That is a function of a state funding policy. So I'm asking the question, so for an issue of, and I haven't worked this out completely, so let's not, this is further than I wanted to go, but there's an equity issue there. So all of a sudden we've decided that Skills Center students are the blessed ones to get summer help. Is that equitable? How could we change the rules of general apportionment to support any student who, et cetera, et cetera? And I haven't figured it out yet.
Cindy?
So based upon your discussion, I'm reading this priority completely differently than I did originally. What I was reading was expanding, coming up with new and broader learning opportunities to make available to students, not more flexible ways of funding expanded learning opportunities, which, so I'm hearing it maybe in a little different way. To that end, maybe we need to put this one over to January and really work all the way through it. I'm not going to be here, so you guys can do what you want. We could do it today, and that would be fine. But, like I said, I read this it's almost like I read this as a noun instead of the verb fund.
Well, it's both. I mean, the way that this typically works is you guys express a priority of what you value, and then I go figure some things out, and so I think it's appropriate that this expresses a conceptual support for expanded learning, whether summer or otherwise, and then I want to go figure some things out, or I wouldn't figure it out, as the case may be. And I'm hearing that there would be reluctance to increase the regulatory environment for lab funding. That I wasn't thinking about that anyway. So so I suppose we could get a more detailed statement. But on the other hand, then if I reverse course, I come up with a new idea. Then all of a sudden we got to go back and do the whole thing over again. That seems a little awkward.
So by eliminating the last sentence, does it make your job easier?
Fine.
Okay, so let's just eliminate the last sentence.
Okay, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
Move the adoption.
I move the adoption of Exhibit J, Expanded Learning Opportunities, as part of the 2016 Legislative Priorities.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Exhibit J, which is Expanded Learning Opportunities, as part of our legislative priorities. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I intend to offer an amendment for an additional priority. Would it be the chair's pleasure that I do that now, or wait until we finish on college and career?
The amendment is to, or it's an additional item.
It's an additional priority dealing with educator compensation systems and teacher shortages, and Jack has a specific paragraph that he can project.
I'd say let's go ahead and go through this. So yes, you may.
Exhibit A.
So you need a motion.
Or do you want to
Shall I speak to it, or?
speak to it initially, please?
All right. So in my view, we have an opportunity here with the legislature to address this question that we dealt with. We heard from PESB yesterday about how the compensation system is not aligned with their credentialing system, and we also heard we had discussion about teacher shortages. The reason I think it's an opportunity is that in the coming session, and if not this session, certainly in the next session, and I think we want to lay the seed this time, the legislature is going to be grappling with this question of more state funding for educators. And so this puts it front and center. I believe it's so what the priorities say is that, and it's aligned, I believe, Jack, with the SB? Yes. Yeah, so this is very much, it's basically supporting their initiative, and Jack and Ben, you're going to be speaking with them tomorrow. So we would, and without getting into the details about exactly how this works, because that is very much their, but it would seem to me to be a very well-developed system. And then the last sentence talks about asking the legislature to support systemic measures proposed by both PESB and Superintendent Doran. Also have some really good ideas about dealing with this teacher shortages. Again, not getting too much into the weeds about specifics, but shining a spotlight that this is really something that legislature, you ought to be dealing with. I think it has, if this were to come to pass, it would make a big difference in our schools. And I appreciate that it's, I don't like to have too many legislative priorities, but to me, this isn't one of those situations where the legislature is going to be dealing with these very issues. So it's a real opportunity. Now's the time if we're ever going to do it. So I would move that we add. I move that we add Exhibit K to legislative priorities.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to, I would say add or approve. Might approve be okay here, because that's where we are. approve Exhibit K, which is to align educator compensation systems with new credentialing policies and address teacher shortages, and that would be a joint priority with the Professional Educator Standards Board. Discussion. Holly?
So I'm wondering if everyone around the table actually knows what the salary schedule, the professional salary schedule is like. If we had, enough of a conversation, or people been exposed to that, do we know what we're approving? I think I've seen it multiple times, but just curious around the table before we vote on something. Are people comfortable with what we're voting on? I think seeing some heads kind of going. Because, didn't really, in the Pepsi presentation yesterday, they didn't really show us what that looked like. And I know there was some legislation last year actually filling in some numbers in the blanks, and where does that where does that parse out in terms of, you have a piece of legislation that's proposing moving to that, aligning the salary schedule to the professional educator model and advancement along a career continuum. Yes, it accomplishes that priority, but it has numbers in the boxes. What do we do with that? Like, it's a little bit. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just that's a discussion piece, right?
Bob?
Yeah. My understanding is that the state comes up with a schedule, and they distribute money based on that schedule. But how it's actually paid to teachers is a negotiated item district meetings. So you get the money one way, it goes into a checkbook, and then you argue over how it gets spent actually. So I'm not sure, with all the theory behind it, whether it would actually affect what we want to affect. I don't know what the cost would be. I'm wondering if maybe we could save this one for January and add it as a priority event. I agree it's an important topic to talk about. I would suggest it.
I really support Bob's encouragement that we hold it until January, and we can't do that since Ben is going to be with that board tomorrow. That if we must do something today, that we do it, that we tentatively approve, subject to your discussion with the board tomorrow. But my preference is to delay.
I think it's important that we at least get it in front of us again. I know we took a glance at it, but I think we need to have a little more information on it. I support this in theory, but I think that we need to have a chance to really take a look at it, and I think that January is a better time to do that.
Janice?
I wonder if we need to take an even broader stand around centralizing bargaining. Because isn't that what will actually drive some of the equity?
Yeah, there are a number of different things that one can do. Centralized bargaining, centralized pay for the state taking over health. So these are just two things. So if it's the sense of the board that we need to think about it a little more. Certainly there are more things we could do, but the thought here would be since we have SBE that has a very well developed program, and to Holly's point, QVC has worked on this. It's not exactly the same, but there's been a lot of work on that. But if we want to feel comfortable with it, and there possibly could be more things, but the more we kind of bite off, the less chance it's going to go down the throat. So if it's the will, I will withdraw them. It wasn't second, or it was second.
Yeah, it was second. Okay,
but I could. I'm okay with doing it. Ben, you're going to be talking to them tomorrow, is that?
Yeah. I'm fine with. The coming into the meeting, the plan, and that's why it wasn't in your packet, was that you were going to discuss it, have your presentation with Jennifer, I'd go chat with the folks, and then perhaps you would consider something in January. So it's certainly not a problem with me.
Okay.
If you want to switch it to January.
So I just want to say that I really, and this is to Ben and staff and Peter for bringing it back in front of us again, I really appreciate that as part of this process we're looking at stakeholder priorities too, or other people, and seeing where we can line up our priorities. I think that's really super valuable, so I really appreciate that. And I'm not opposed to this idea either. I just want to make sure that we know what we're really voting on. So I think January makes a lot of sense to me too.
And then I'm hearing, so I guess can I withdraw the motion now? Okay, but I will do that with the understanding with my colleagues that we will see this in January, and Benny will provide whatever additional.
In fact, when I'm with them tomorrow, I'll show them that this is what you were considering.
Yeah, and if they have some, that's not aligning, that's fine too, because we definitely want to be there.
And does it also have to be acceptable to the seconder, which you withdraw or no? Good.
I will withdraw.
Okay.
Can we make sure then in January, even if it's just a little brief set aside, that we have kind of the background information that we need on that as part of the
We will.
meeting?
We will. Okay. Oh,
I would like to include in that the WEA's opinion on this. Just getting the professional educator's point of view may not represent really what the teachers are thinking. It's going to affect them in bargaining.
okay. All right. Let's move on to our last item.
Exhibit L.
So it's up there on the screen, the career and college ready diploma requirements. We have some language that's been suggested. Discussion. Moment.
I would like to ask the chair if the sense of the group was that we were going to delay linking testing to passing a high stakes test, an exit test to getting a diploma, if we were going to set that aside until January. Is my understanding off, or are we expecting that we're going to do something today?
I'm as one board member anticipating that we're going to do something today, one way or the other, on this side. Anyone else on the way in? Tom?
Well, I think I see where Mona is coming from, because I was coming from the same place. I thought we just had a discussion that we were going to talk about, some of the stuff in the middle in January, or revisit link, delink, and somehow it felt like the conversation got left that this was coming up again in January. And so with that in mind, at some point here, I'd like to propose an amendment to this motion that essentially takes everything out except the sentence about the high school, about the biology end of course exam, and that we go forward with that right now, and we leave the rest of it, or whatever continuing discussion we said we were going to have in January, because I thought that's what I heard too.
Does anyone want to move this?
I would like to amend it.
Well, you can't, have to be moved before it can be amended. So,
Point of order, we didn't discuss these as such during our discussion period because you wanted to discuss them during the business week. And up until now, we've been modifying, then we make a motion, then we ask for a vote. So I think that's where it's going, is that in light of what we've been doing, she just wants to amend it.
I was hearing that Holly wanted to amend it too,
okay.
so I was hearing multiple amendments, so I think it needs to be
Structured.
It needs to be structured. That's just my take on it.
Well, I'd like to make the motion not about.
You need to push your button on it. Okay, go ahead.
I move that we delay action on career and college ready diploma requirements until the January meeting, after such time that we have gathered more research that we can objectively look at and determine what's in the best interest of the students of the state of Washington. I'd love to have a second.
I'll say that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to delay the, describe it to me again, the discussion on career and college ready
Legislative priorities.
legislative priorities. Go ahead. Cindy?
I think there are two different issues that are in the language that was originally proposed. I think the discussion that we've had over the past 2 days has been around assessments. And by and large, that's been the SBEC assessment. It has not been around the end of course biology exam, which we have discussed in the past several times, and I thought we kind of come to a consensus that it was not serving our students well. While I can certainly support waiting for you all to wait until January to discuss the other assessments, I think the work on biology needs to be going on now. And so I would hope that we can take a position on the end of course biology exam being delinked from graduation at this meeting, and then deal with any other assessments in the future.
Okay, Isabel, so then she's on. Roll. Go ahead.
I would say, for me, I want to move forward. I think we've had a lot of discussion about, our state right now is we have a requirement around assessments. And if the state of the world right now is that we have requirements that the students take these assessments, I want to make sure that we're moving forward in trying to explore alternatives to that assessment for students to graduate. I think the issue about whether there should be an assessment tied to graduation is something that we can continue to have a discussion about and aspire, and if that's something that we want to advocate to the legislature for in the future, I think that's definitely something that we can continue to talk and discuss as a board. But the state of the world is now is that we need to come up with more meaningful alternatives, and we've gotten a lot of feedback around the fact that the alternatives we have now are not perfect, and so we need to figure out what other alternatives are more meaningful for students and how to expand access to alternatives. So I would.
Holly?
So I want to take part in the discussion a little bit, and then I think there's a motion on the floor that we're discussing, and I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to that motion. Is that what I would do in terms of parliamentary
I
procedure?
guess so. If it's a friendly amendment, that means Mona has to say, well, that's good.
So Isabel, I totally get where you're coming from on that. I'm sort of like, okay, come on, we're going to do it, let's do it, kind of moving forward kind of thing. But, we didn't really, this isn't just a ploy, I really don't understand what the impacts of going after transition courses and dual credit courses, what that looks like at the district level, right? I haven't posed that question really to myself yet or done any investigation of that, and we didn't really, I don't think thoroughly got that or talk about that in the discussion today. So I don't see delaying that part of it until January as we're gonna not go after that. I see it as we're a little bit late out of the box, but we're not coming out of the box on it. And I sort of wonder, does anybody else sort of feel like this is like Groundhog Day? Isn't this exactly where we got to last year in the November meeting? And we ended up going forward with the biology piece and then picked up the rest of it in January, I think, or no, that was the motion at the time. I think actually we ended up going, I don't remember. I just remember being exactly at this moment before. So, but I feel like, the legislative priority that we were asked to look at last year ended with the class of 2019. I don't think it specifically called out transition courses and dual credit courses. I think that's something that's surfaced from the conversations we've had since, and honestly, I haven't, I'm so focused on the black and white of it, I really haven't nuanced it. I don't know what the impact would be. So I would rather do what Mona's saying and wait and look at objective data again around the link to graduation. I think that's still an important question that hasn't really been vetted well. And then I would like to offer a friendly amendment to Mona's motion that we delay this until January, except for the biology end of course piece, because I think we've been unwavering on that part of it. I don't think there's more time, more discussion. We've been there for a year. And so we could pull that part out and begin working with that.
And I can accept the friendly amendment that we divide the legislative action into two parts, and that today we act on the part of the statement that says the board also urges the legislature not to suspend all of that we act on today and delay action on the first part until January.
Okay, other discussion?
I agree with this, so I think I'd like to see us move forward. That doesn't preclude a more refined discussion about these alternatives, which, as Spence points out, and as I said, is really probably where the action is going to be. And we want to make sure that we're, that we have the analysis moving forward, and we're authorizing our staff to look at those in the next 2 months and see where the legislative proposals are. So that's the spirit that I see this, is when it says, and I think we talked about taking testing out and changing 11th grade to high school, and I'm fine with those kinds of things. But so we're talking about alternatives, not necessarily testing, moving forward, and then looking at the kinds of things between now and then that would be in this doable, passable range.
Could you read what you think we're talking about? Read the part of the statement that you think we've agreed to those changes.
I'm sorry, I didn't. If I said that we've agreed to those changes, I misspoke on it.
Okay, right now what we have happening on the board, or what I see going on over there, is taking Mona's motion and friendly amendment from Holly so that we are only addressing in our legislative priority here the end of course for biology, and that we would defer discussion and any prospective action on the balance of the original Exhibit L for career and college-ready diploma requirements to January.
Okay, so let's let the typing settle down over there for just a second. So, all right, so what Parker has up there, all right, tell me when you're done, Parker.
One moment.
Mr. Chair, could I make an observation, please?
Okay.
Okay. When you look at the opening intro statement, expand alternatives to assessments for high school graduation and adopt a comprehensive science assessment. We say more than that in this statement below. So the intro statement doesn't accurately reflect what we have in the statement below.
Understood. I think they're working with that. I hope they are.
I don't think we've given them the right.
All right, so what you have on the screen is the motion that was made in the friendly amendment. Was the friendly amendment accepted?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so at this point then, what you see on the top part of the screen reflects that. It reflects the friendly amendment. If you decide not to do that, all it does is go reverse.
Right, I understand.
And Mona, you asked what I was referring to. I would not want this amendment to be adopted. Instead, I'd like to go back to the first, and we had some, what I was referring to, we had some discussion about the original first sentence, which we did not agree to, but I think there are some ways that it can be clarified and changed. That's all.
Parker, why does it say end of biology 2 times? Okay.
One is the title, as the other legislative priorities are, and then there's a description of the title, a synopsis right below it.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So, am I correct, Jack and Parker, that what I see on the screen reflects the motion and the friendly amendment?
Correct.
Okay. Ball's in your court.
Yeah, got it. Further discussion, Connie?
I don't see a problem with adopting this, and I can vote for that, but I also believe that we need to continue to work on the next section of it, which is the alternatives. So if we could have them as 2 separate sections of career and college-ready diploma requirements, this one distinctly deals with biology, the next one will deal with alternatives, and that would make me very happy.
As separate exhibits?
Separate motions.
So basically take what was originally in your packet, split it into two?
Right.
Okay, hold on just a second, Parker, before you start typing up a storm. Because we could,
Yeah, well,
we could be typing for hours here. So,
yeah, right now, that would,
so the motion,
hold on, please.
Part of the motion is to table the legislative priority, then I would have to vote against it. If we're dealing with it in two separate sections, then it gives me a chance to vote on the biology by itself, but I can't. I doubt if it's going to be friendly, then I will offer it as a friendly amendment. Can we take out the table of legislative priority as part of this motion?
Okay.
Connie, I don't think I think that either way it accomplishes the same thing. One way might be more clean, you might be asking for a cleaner way to do this, right? Because if we separated it out, then we could revisit, have a motion to table that piece of it if we wanted to, make it more clear to you. That's because I think effectively that's exactly what Mona's asking to do. She's asking to pull this piece out, and actually she kind of did make two motions. You're just pulling the two motions apart, right? Like, isn't it kind of two things? One would be a table the rest of it.
She made a single motion,
Okay.
and then you added a friendly amendment, and that's what happened.
Maybe
And so it splits it off.
What the motion is, that we act on the part of legislative action that begins with the board also urges the legislature not just to suspend, but to end the biology, that we act on that today, and that we delay action on the first part of that legislative action statement until January, when we have done further study on that part.
Cindy?
And you're friendly?
Well, wait, Mona, I'm gonna let Cindy, I think we understand where we are with that. Go ahead.
And I understand what you just said, Mona, is the result of Holly's friendly amendment.
Right.
I'd like to offer another friendly amendment, which piggybacks on what Connie was saying, and that is that you separate that into two different motions. Okay? So basically, we would have a motion that Exhibit I is just the language that's up there.
Okay.
And that's one motion, and we're going to vote on.
Exhibit L.
L, I'm sorry. I have bad eyesight, I'm getting older. And then separate from that would be the question of what we're going to do with the other kind of assessment.
I accept that.
Okay.
No, I have to restate the motion again. But,
So-
You want to come over and help me with that?
want to restate where we are.
so that, am I understanding that correctly, that they would be two separate exhibits essentially? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have Parker do that, just so we have something to vote on. We may be completely reconstructing this if it doesn't pass, but so Parker created an exhibit L and M.
We didn't make a motion about what to do with this part.
Point of inquiry, does separating the exhibits mean that they would be separate legislative priorities necessarily? I mean, I understand that the idea of trying to vote separately, but these are very closely related legislative priorities. I wouldn't want to have the fact that they are separate exhibits then
The only
have a plethora
significance,
of
from a staff perspective, the only significance would be if one passed and the other didn't. If they both passed, I would treat it as a single.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff?
There was in the original, on our priority list, there was an original thing, sentence at the end about the new assessment, and I don't think I see it on the bottom one, the exhibit M. Seems to me that's not there, and so I don't know where that went. See what I'm saying? About the sign, the comprehensive science assessment. And I do want to point out that I think this came up in the conversation also, talking about administering.
Yeah.
It's just administering, it doesn't say anything about the graduation.
Yeah, I got it.
But I think before, there might have been some confusion about, there'll be a graduation requirement. It actually doesn't say that, so if there was confusion, I just wanted to point that out.
So are we in the process of restating the motion? Well, I mean, of actually, restating.
Council believes it would be cleaner if I withdraw the motion and make a motion on the second, on Exhibit L, call the second part of that statement Exhibit L. And the first part of it becomes Exhibit M. So I'm happy to introduce a new motion. Withdraw the first motion.
Okay.
If the friendly amendment agrees.
Okay.
I move that the board approves Exhibit L, which states the board urges the legislature not just to suspend, but to end the biology end of course exam as a high school graduation requirement effective with the class of 2018, period. A comprehensive science assessment aligned with the next generation science standard should be first administered in 2017, 2018.
Okay, it's been moved. Okay, what's happening, folks? I have a motion and a second on the floor, and I have people jumping in. Okay. There's a motion and a second on the floor to adopt Exhibit L up there as you can read it. Okay, now we can have discussion on that. Holly.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to that motion so what Mona did is she read off of the original version of the legislative priority around career and college ready that said that 2017-18, but there was an amendment up there, some words missing up there that changed that back to.
Parker,
it was,
don't change it.
yeah, according to, it was right there, according to the schedule for the assessment developed by the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. I'd like to amend Mona's motion to be the wording that I worked on.
Okay, Jeff.
And as I recall, that was the discussion earlier in the day that everybody agreed.
Yeah, Mona was just reading off the prior.
Sorry, I went out of order. Do you accept the friendly amendment, Mona?
I need to know what it was.
Sorry, you were reading Mona from an earlier version of the original career college ready legislative priority. This was some work that had been done out of a prior discussion earlier today, and this was actually what was showing up on the board as the original exhibit. But when you looked in your packet, you saw the earlier version and you read from the earlier version. So I just want to make sure we captured that.
I accept the friendly amendment.
And Jeff. So this is the motion that we have on the floor at this point in time. Is there further discussion before we move to a vote? Okay. All those in favor of adopting Exhibit L, career and college ready diploma requirements, the end of biology, end of course exams, graduation requirement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We're now on to Exhibit M. Is there a motion?
I move that we delay action on Exhibit M until the January meeting when we've had further study and discussion before taking action.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we delay the adoption of Exhibit M as a legislative priority on career and college ready diploma requirements. Discussion.
I'm just going to say again that I think we need to continue to look towards alternatives, and so I'm opposed. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I intend to vote no. I also want to say that if the motion fails, that I would suggest that we need to do some to take out the word testing and change 11th grade to high school, so that I understand that, but I want to make clear that if the motion fails and go forward, that there's some additional work that we can do to make sure we capture this idea of looking at alternatives.
Exhibit M has not been moved, if I'm not mistaken. What's been moved is tabling this item.
Correct.
So we could in fact change the wording of Exhibit M After the initiative table, well then.
Holland.
So it's probably no surprise that I will be voting for this motion, but I think there are several things that do need to be looked at in continuing our discussion, and I thought we were there in our earlier discussion that in January we would come back and, have done some sort of objective data work around the question of graduation tests or not graduation tests. And then also, I guess I would just say again that before we talk about specific alternatives, I would like just to listen a little bit more about the impact of those.
And I want to be clear that I'm understanding you, the information that was provided in the way of research and studies and such. You're saying that is something different from the kind of data you were looking for or hoping we would have to discuss?
Well, I sort of thought we got to a point, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the larger discussion today, I thought we sort of moved on with the idea that we would continue talking about it in January, right? And then Mona asked for, and I concurred with, some objective data around specifically what benefit do we get for linking it to graduation, besides better test scores on the test itself. Right, so that was one thing, and then the other piece of that was just what are the dual credit and the transition courses, and just knowing a little bit more about where we are with that. There's all kinds of things we could look at with those, and I'm not opposed to them at all. I can think of a bunch of kids that are going to right bang off the bat, but are the winners losers? Are there impacts to that? I don't know. We can't even talk about it.
Ben, I'll give you a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to be clear for the record, I'm not debating the motion. If the guidance to the staff at the conclusion of this meeting is that objective information on research, I want to be really clear that we did a very, very thorough search of that and review of that, and that is a study. The notion of looking at all of the states in the nation, who does, who doesn't have them, and trying to discern meaning from differences in their scores and controlling for the various factors that conflate those results. That's an academic study. People have done that study. Several people have done that study, and those materials are included and linked in the materials we've had for this meeting. If there's an expectation that the staff will do a study, that's not a good, that's not a realistic place to be. The staff would not be able to do in 6 weeks what the academic community has not been able to do for 35 years.
Well said.
You understand what I'm saying?
Well said.
So what information you seek will need to be more clear if we leave the meeting under the impression that we're going to be able to answer that question for you.
Okay, Connie?
That was my point, is that we got a lot of data for this meeting in preparation for this conversation, and I don't know what else Steph would be coming up with.
Okay, I'm going to, do you have something else you want to add?
I would just like to add in terms of Ben's wanting clarification on what else could the staff do in the way of research. I'm hoping all of us read the approximately 50-page or longer review of the literature that was done on exit exams. And it's clear in the review that was done by experts that exit exams serve no purpose, period. That was the conclusion. Now, you can read the paper again if you'd like, but that is the conclusion, or we could debate what they said in the paper. My request would be to get further enlightenment. 50% of the states are not using an exit exam, not using SBAC either. So I'd like to know what, and some of those states are performing educationally much better than the state of Washington. So I would like to know what are they doing to assure the public, the citizens, lawmakers, state boards, that their students are getting a diploma that reflects mastery. They're not using exit exams. Because I'd like to know a little bit more about states that are doing much better than we are. What they do. That would be my request.
As maker of the motion, I give you the final comment there on that. I'm going to call for the question if we're ready to go.
The motion is to defer.
Right, it is to delay, and the motion is to delay. Excuse me.
Linda, would you, I've had prior experience with this, and this is one where you vote yes, you're actually voting to table. Could you clarify for the whole board what a yes means here, just so?
Okay, just so everyone's clear, the motion that Mona has made that's been seconded is on Exhibit M to table it to the January meeting. Is that correct, Mona? And so people have to vote that up or down, tabling it, Exhibit M to January.
A yes is to not move forward with that.
A yes on Mona's, a vote on Mona's motion would be that you're not moving forward on it today, you're tabling it to January. Is that clear?
Is everybody ready? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
Could we have a show of hands, please?
Division. Okay. Got to do the roll call? Sounds like the ayes have it. You got loud voices too.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Connie Fletcher?
No.
Bob Hughes?
Yes.
Kevin Liberty?
No.
Janice Avery?
No.
Cynthia McMullen?
Yes.
Jeff Estes? Mona Bailey?
Yes.
Isabel Munoz Colon?
No.
Peter Mayer?
No.
Holly Coon? Yes. I have 4 yeses and 6 nos.
So the motion fails. Is there any other motion to be brought before the board at this point in time? Go ahead.
Well, I guess I can't make my motion, and my motion will be to amend this statement to remove the SBAC test required for graduation. That would be my motion, to amend the statement. But we have to have a motion. Somebody else
So-
has to make a motion.
Does someone want to move on Exhibit M as it stands?
I move that we adopt Exhibit M as it stands.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Exhibit M, Career and College Ready Diploma requirements as shown on the screen. Okay, go ahead, Peter.
So I move that we amend by striking the word testing and change 11th grade to the high school.
The amendment.
Okay. We have an amendment that adds, or are we removing now, or alternatives, expand alternatives, and then high school? Can you highlight those areas, please?
And just to comment, this is in line with the discussion I think we had, and people may not agree with that, but I think it reflects the spirit of the discussion.
Could I make a question and make an observation? It's not that I'm okay on removing testing, but the 11th grade, if we are uncertain about when this test is going to be administered, because we don't know whether the superintendent wants it at the 10th grade level or the 11th grade level, we're not ready to vote. So to say it's a high school test leaves our public out there in no man's land. We are not certain about what we're doing, and I really think that we need to be clear about what we're sending to the legislature. It's not a high school exam, it's for a specific grade. And I think if we don't know when that's going to be, we're not ready to act. So that's my position. Testing is fine, but I don't think we ought to tinker with 11th grade unless we know for sure that it's going to be a different grade.
May I respond to that?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I just, the only purpose was because I didn't want to have locked in that it's necessarily 11th grade. So this is a little broader, because there is some question about whether it could be changed for one or both to the 10th grade.
Yeah, and I don't want this to be argumentative. It's simply a point of fact that we don't know what grade it's going to be administered. Hence, we ought not to act on something with too many unknowns.
Okay, thank you. Connie?
Just to comment that it was administered in 10th grade this year as well as 11th grade, so high school test or high school assessment is more in line, I guess, what I assume is happening.
Okay, we have a procedural technicality here in that an amendment was made and there was a motion on that, so we have to vote the amendment up and down, which are the words that Peter added subsequent to the original motion, which are, or I should say, he omitted testing and changed 11th grade to high school. So is there any further discussion on that amendment at this point?
The only thing I was going to say, this, my memory may not be correct, but when we had in the previous meeting, when we were talking about SBE in reference to 11th grade, it was pointed out to us that the language used was often a high school assessment, and that people sometimes said it could be 11th, it could be 10th, but they talked about how to assessment of high school. So we may have inadvertently inserted grade level what the intent was. So we might have done that to ourselves, when in fact the developers and people talking about looking at standards and then assessments talked about it being a high school assessment. Whether it should be 10, whether it should be 11 or something, we could develop it. But actually we kind of did that to ourselves together by actually putting that grade level in. Because when we were as I recall, when we said 11, it was pointed out to us that they considered, even though it was I believe, a high school assessment, which I think maybe gave them a flexibility to think about whether. I mean, that's my recollection. Somebody could disagree, but that's kind of what I remember. Because I remember going, oh, I didn't think of it that way. I was sort of, Ramon was like, oh, this is 11th grade, has to be 11th grade, and so on. And when they did that for us, it was like, oh, now there's a greater sort of flexibility. It may create other problems, but it was something we kind of did for ourselves.
I'd like to have that clarified.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so on the amendment, as shown up in Exhibit M, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Okay, the amendment is passed. Now we're to the full
I have
motion.
an amendment. I'd like to amend the statement to delete tests required for graduation after SBE.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's been moved and seconded to delete. I'm a little slow on the uptake now. The test required for graduation language. Is there further discussion on that? Isabel?
I mean, the only thing I would say is it is currently required as part of our system, so I'm not sure that it makes sense to take it out. I mean, it is, but right now it's currently a required test.
It's required for graduation.
Yes. Yes. Right now it's a requirement. It's state law.
Beginning with the class of 2019.
Yeah. So we're looking for alternatives for current state law. So we're quoting state law, or not quoting state law, but we're identifying that currently in state law, students are required to have pass the SBAC, and that we are looking towards expanding alternatives for students who are currently required by state law to do that.
Okay, go ahead, Connie.
I think we misunderstand.
Okay, Connie. Oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry.
Kevin, I think you have been doing remarkably well. Actually, I was chuckling a little while ago when Isabel was jumping in there to help sort out procedure, and I was thinking, oh, isn't it so much easier when you're sitting in that chair?
She's loving this.
Seriously. No apologies are needed. So it is interesting though, because not all students currently in the system were required to pass the SBAC. Right? We still got kids that are into the alternatives. So Mona's right. Right? We're looking ahead. I mean, eventually everybody's going to be required to pass the SBAC, but this year's seniors aren't required to pass the SBAC. This year's juniors.
It does say beginning of the class of 2019.
Oh, for 2019. Okay, never mind.
It is a
Well,
correct
so
statement.
this year's freshmen. So the alternatives would be available to this year's freshmen. Okay, and then the other thing is that I do think that the amendment that she just posed does give us a little more flexibility to respond to whatever form bills might take on the Hill. Because, for example, I mean, if I think about the bill that Randy proposed last year, the very first iteration of it, this amendment would have allowed us to support that if, I mean, it keeps the idea of alternative pathways alive while getting us the flexibility to respond to whatever happens on the Hill and whatever further discussion we have as a board. It keeps the idea of alternative alive without alternative pathways to career and or college readiness alive without necessarily limiting us to then having to, come in against a bill that provides pathway that doesn't directly link the test to. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, this would have allowed us to support Randy's bill last year.
Okay.
I think we wanted to.
Hang on. I'm going to recognize people as they speak. Next in line is Madeline. Thank you. Bring us home, Madeline, please.
Is there even a point to having alternatives if the test isn't required? So that's a great question. You don't need alternatives if you don't need to pass the test,
And
right?
so we're back to
So I don't see a reason to take out the test required for graduation because that is law right now, and we're working for students right now because that have to take care of that test, and they need alternatives, and it hasn't been changed yet. So I think we need to go for what's already in law.
Thank you, Mona.
2 points. Why did we spend all that time talking about delinking the exit exam to the high school diploma? Why did we spend all that time in this meeting? I wish I could count the hours that we have discussed it. My motion, I still intend to have you vote no on what I have presented, but I firmly believe that we ought to leave and that we ought to send, since these are our priorities, to the legislature. By taking that out, we are saying to the legislature that we are in support of delinking the SBAC to a requirement for graduation, which means if students don't pass it or some alternative, that they don't get a high school diploma in our state. I think the alternatives still would be valuable. The SBAC is going to be important if we're using it to help students understand where they have benefited from their education and where they haven't, and where they still have opportunities to grow. So if they don't pass the SBAC, they could, through alternative means, find out where their weaknesses are and where their strengths are. So there's still value in what we've already done. But I think amending this motion to say that it not be a requirement for graduation is still valid. It becomes active with the class of 2019.
Okay. Paul?
So as so often seems to happen around this table, Madeline sits there really quietly, and then she comes out with sort of the heart of the matter. And I don't think that what I'm going to say is what you meant, but I think you did very concisely express the heart of the matter. And I think that there's many of us still sitting around the table that feel exactly like you do. If the test is linked to graduation, why do we need alternatives? And that's the mindset that I feel like Mona and I have been trying to address today. Because what are we talking about alternatives for? Are we talking about alternative pathways for students to make a successful link to the next step in their life? Or are we talking about alternatives to a single measure that the system is contorted around trying to get the kids through that doorway? And I would say that whether or not the test is linked to graduation, there has to be alternatives. But are we talking about alternatives to a single test? Or are we talking about alternative pathways for students to be successful? And I think they're two different things.
Cindy?
And I completely understand, colleague, what you're saying, and Mona, I agree with you as well, that I would like to see them be linked. I don't see today that happening by the members of the board who are sitting around this table. 6 to 4 makes that kind of clear to me. So now I look at what do we have in front of us? What is facing a student right now? That is, they're required to take the SBAC for graduation. They don't pass it. So now what does this board want to say? We want to say, give them some more alternatives to deal with the situation they find themselves in. I can support that. I would like to go farther than that, but I would like to at least go this far. And so, and then the discussion about linking, delinking, I presume is going to come up in front of this body over the years. Because it's in the community, it's going through the legislature. You all are going to get to talk about it in the future. But for those students who have not passed the test, they need more alternatives. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Okay.
I'll be supporting the underlying, but not the motion to amend.
Okay, gotcha. Go ahead, Janice.
I'm not going to support this motion to amend, and I'm not going to do more wordsmithing, but I think, so I just want to say what I think the whole point is that students demonstrate proficiency against a set of standards that have been determined to be the standards that will help them be ready for it. And when students don't pass this single test, which undoubtedly is flawed because tests, all assessment strategies have flaws for different individuals, we have to look at multiple alternatives to create pathways for success for students.
Okay, you're the maker of the amendment,
I
so.
will withdraw my motion if you will withdraw your second.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now we're back to the original motion. I thought we withdrew the amendment. Right. I mean, you just said you're withdrawing the amendment. The motion is amended, and now we're returning to the original motion, which is what I said.
Yes.
Okay, as amended. We took it out. I thought it was, yeah, because it never did get amended. Okay, all right. It's two negatives to make a positive.
I just want to have everybody
Okay.
read once more to make sure this is the correct
Language. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Janice.
I just would make a motion to amend to include the word fund after expand.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, I got a few of those. So we're going to have to take this as an amendment at this point.
May I ask, Ben, is there, the alternatives have costs, is that correct? Some probably don't, but some do?
Yeah, it runs the gamut. I mean, every time you guys say "and fund," I mean, when a bill is introduced in the legislature, there's a fiscal note.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm not going to run around costing all these bills out, right? So they will. I guess it'll be if they fund the fiscal note, then,
Yeah. So I wonder about the and fund, because my guess is these are not huge costs, and anytime we say fund, it looks like we're asking for more money, and that's a non-starter for many legislators. And
Some could potentially save money, some will cost money.
yeah, I just don't know, Janice, if I wonder about that, because whereas summer school it's a definitely an added cost. These things may have cost, and may be modest, and as Ben points out, there's always a fiscal note. So
The chair would counsel you that we have been doing this in a number of these, Peter, and I think in this case it's important. We've had a case made to us about how costly it can be. So to me, the language is reasonable in that context. That's why I would say we've been consistent elsewhere with it. Okay, so we're going to need an up and down vote on the amendment, which, as shown there in Exhibit M, is and fund alternatives, to expand and fund alternatives. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the amendment is passed, and now the motion as amended again is ready for further discussion. Hearing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Please note that for the record that Mona Bailey has abstained. Okay, so the motion carries. That concludes our business for today. Thank you all for working through this, and we look forward to seeing you in January.